What would you do if your husband handed you divorce papers in front of your entire family? Can one complicated secret really destroy everything, even when you believe you're the victim? The answer landed on my doorstep with a lawyer's letter and a room full of shocked faces. My name is Evadne Morrow, and I need you to understand something right from the start. I'm not the villain in this story. Everyone wants to paint me as the bad guy, but the truth is far more complicated than anyone wants to admit. My husband Nathan thinks he's so perfect, so methodical with his spreadsheets and his quiet accusations, but he doesn't understand what it's like to feel invisible in your own marriage. The kitchen felt smaller than usual that Tuesday evening as I scrolled through my phone, pretending to check work emails. Nathan stood by the counter, methodically organizing receipts. Always so precise, always so controlled. Our 7-year-old daughter Maya sat at the table, coloring quietly, her dark hair falling across her face like a protective curtain. Evadne. Nathan's voice cut through the domestic silence, calm but pointed. I noticed you've been working late a lot recently, 3 times this week alone. I didn't look up from my phone. The office has been crazy busy. You know how it is with the new quarterly reports. The lie rolled off my tongue easily, too easily. Right, he paused, and I could feel his eyes on me. It's just that yesterday you said you were working until 9, but I called the office around 8:30 and no one answered. My stomach tightened, but I forced myself to appear unbothered. We don't always answer the main line when we're focused on projects. You should know that by now, Nathan.
God, it's like you don't trust me at all. Maya's crayon stopped moving. Even at 7, she could sense the tension crackling between us like static electricity before a storm. I'm not saying I don't trust you, Nathan replied carefully. I'm just trying to understand. Understand what, exactly? I snapped, finally looking up. That your wife has a demanding job? That sometimes I need to stay late to get things done? Or are you just looking for reasons to be suspicious because you're feeling insecure? Nathan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. After 12 years together, I knew all his tells. I'm not being insecure, Evadne. I'm asking simple questions about inconsistencies. Inconsistencies, I laughed, but it came out sharper than intended. Listen to yourself. You sound paranoid. Maybe the problem isn't my work schedule. Maybe it's your jealousy and controlling behavior. The words hung in the air like poison. Maya had stopped coloring entirely now, her small hands gripping the crayon so tightly her knuckles were white. Just then, my mother Harriet's voice drifted from the living room where she'd been watching television. Everything all right in there? Fine, Mom, I called back, then lowered my voice. See what you're doing? You're creating drama in front of Maya and my mother. Nathan glanced at our daughter, his expression softening. Maybe we should talk about this later. There's nothing to talk about, I said firmly. I work hard to contribute to this family, and instead of being grateful, you're acting like some kind of detective. It's honestly creepy, Nathan. My mother appeared in the doorway, her silver hair perfectly styled despite the late hour. Today, it felt like a courtroom. Nathan sat across from me, methodically cutting his pancakes into precise squares. He'd barely spoken since we'd arrived, just nodded politely at my family's attempts at conversation. My mother sat to my left, resplendent in her Sunday best, while my younger sister Leela had driven up from the city to join us. Nathan's mother Denise and his brother Eric completed our uncomfortable circle. So, Evadne, Denise said, her tone carefully neutral. Nathan mentioned you've been putting in a lot of overtime lately. I felt Nathan's eyes flick up to mine. Here we go again. The administrative load has been intense, I replied smoothly, taking a sip of my mimosa. But someone has to keep the office running efficiently. Of course, Denise nodded, but there was something sharp in her expression. At 60, Nathan's mother had never been one to mince words. It must be exhausting, all those late nights. It is, I agreed, then decided to go on the offensive, especially when I come home to an interrogation instead of support. Nathan's been acting like a private investigator lately, questioning every hour I spend at work. Leela looked up from her eggs Benedict, concerned. What do you mean?
He follows me around like a detective, I said, letting just the right amount of exhaustion creep into my voice. Checking receipts, calling my office, monitoring bank statements, it's honestly becoming creepy. Mom immediately jumped to my defense. That does sound excessive, Nathan. Marriage requires trust. Trust goes both ways, Eric interjected quietly. Nathan's older brother had always been protective, and I could see him studying me with those same calculating eyes that ran in their family. What's that supposed to mean? I demanded. Nathan finally spoke, his voice calm and measured. Evadne, can you help me understand something? Last Tuesday, you said you worked until 9, but when I called the office at 8:30, not only did no one answer, but I drove by around 9:15 and the parking lot was empty. The table went quiet except for the gentle clatter of silverware from other diners. I felt heat creep up my neck, but I forced myself to laugh. So now you're driving by my workplace? Nathan, do you hear yourself? This is stalking behavior. I wasn't stalking anyone, he replied evenly. I was picking up Chinese food from the restaurant next door. Happened to notice, I repeated, making sure everyone could hear the skepticism in my voice. Right, and I suppose you just happened to call the office too? I called because I wanted to see if you needed me to pick up dinner for you. Damn, that actually sounded reasonable, and from the expressions around the table, everyone else thought so too. Well, maybe I was in the bathroom, or maybe we were in a conference room where we couldn't hear the phone, I said quickly. There are a dozen explanations that don't involve your conspiracy theories. What about Romano's? Nathan asked quietly. The mimosa suddenly tasted like acid in my mouth. What about it? You said you got takeout there after working late, but Romano's doesn't do takeout, Evadne. I called them. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel 6 pairs of eyes on me, waiting for an explanation that wouldn't come. I ate there, I finally admitted. I was too tired to cook when I got home, so I stopped for a quick dinner by myself. What it is someone who actually sees me as more than just a wife and mother and administrative assistant. I do see you, he said gently, but I also see a woman who's lying to her husband and putting both of us at risk. So what are you saying? That I should just go back to my miserable marriage and pretend to be happy? I'm saying maybe you should figure out what you actually want before you burn everything down. My phone buzzed with a text. I glanced at it automatically, then felt my heart stop. It was from Nathan. Working late again tonight? Shit, I muttered, showing Liam the screen. Just tell him yes, Liam said. It's not technically a lie. You are at the office. I started to type back, then stopped. Another text had come through. I tried calling the main line again. No answer. He's checking up on me, I said, panic creeping into my voice. He called the office. Liam stood up abruptly. I should go. Wait. I grabbed his arm. Don't let him scare you off. Nathan's just being paranoid and controlling. This is exactly what he wants, to isolate me, to make me afraid. Maybe he has good reason to be suspicious, Liam said quietly. Good reason? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Since when is wanting some happiness in my life a crime? Since you started lying to your husband and sneaking around behind his back. The words stung because they were true, but I pushed the guilt away. I wouldn't have to sneak around if Nathan wasn't so controlling. If he actually paid attention to me, actually made me feel valued, none of this would have happened. Liam looked at me for a long moment, and I could see him pulling away emotionally, even before he spoke. I think we both know this has gone too far, he said finally. Maybe it's time to pump the brakes. Don't do this, I pleaded. Don't let Nathan win. This isn't about Nathan winning or losing. This is about doing the right thing. The right thing? I laughed bitterly. The right thing would have been Nathan being a better husband. The right thing would have been him making me feel like I mattered. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a screenshot of a text conversation, my text conversation with Liam from 3 days ago. Heart emojis, inside jokes, plans to meet, messages that were clearly more than professional. The text from Nathan was simple. Care to explain? I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. How did he get these? Liam looked over my shoulder and went pale.
Jesus, Evadne, he has your messages. This is impossible, I whispered. My phone is password protected. He couldn't have. But even as I said it, I remembered. Nathan had set up our family phone plan years ago. He was the IT analyst, the one who understood technology. If anyone could figure out how to access my messages, it would be him. I have to go, Liam said, grabbing his laptop bag. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Please don't leave, I begged. We can figure this out. There's nothing to figure out, Evadne. Your husband knows. It's over. It doesn't have to be over. Nathan's just trying to intimidate us. If we stick together, Liam stared at me. You're married to someone else. You have a child. I'm not going to be part of destroying that. You're not destroying anything. Nathan destroyed it himself by being emotionally abusive and controlling. But Liam was already walking toward the door. I'm sorry, Evadne. I really am.
But this ends now. If you walk out that door, you're proving Nathan right, I called after him. You're letting him control both of us. He paused at the door but didn't turn around. Maybe Nathan isn't the controlling one in this situation. Then he was gone, leaving me alone in the empty conference room with my phone still buzzing with messages from my husband. I looked down at the screen. 3 new texts from Nathan. I know you're at the office. I know you're not alone. Come home, we need to talk. For the first time since this all began, I felt truly afraid. Not of Nathan, he'd never been violent or even particularly angry. I was afraid of what came next, afraid of losing the life I'd built, the security I'd taken for granted. But mostly, I was afraid that everyone would see this as my fault, when the truth was so much more complicated than that. The drive home felt like a funeral procession. Every red light, every stop sign gave me more time to think about what I was going to say, how I was going to explain the unexplainable. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I'd settled on a strategy: deny everything, attack Nathan's invasion of privacy, and make him the villain in this story. The house was too quiet when I walked in. Maya was already in bed. It was past 9 on a school night, but I could hear voices from the kitchen. Nathan's voice, and another one I recognized with growing dread. Eric was here. I found them at the kitchen table, laptops open, papers spread between them like evidence in a crime scene, which I supposed it was. Evadne, Nathan said without looking up, we need to talk. About what? I tried to inject some righteous indignation into my voice. About how you've been stalking me and invading my privacy? Eric glanced up at me, and I saw disappointment in his eyes. Hey, Evadne. Eric, I nodded curtly. I didn't realize this was a family meeting. I asked him to come, Nathan said calmly. I wanted a witness for this conversation. A witness? Nathan, what the hell is wrong with you? I'm your wife, not a criminal. Are you? He asked quietly. My wife, I mean. The question hit me like a physical blow. Of course I'm your wife. What kind of question is that? Nathan finally looked up at me, and what I saw in his eyes made my knees weak. Not anger, not hurt, just cold, analytical assessment. Like I was a problem to be solved. Sit down, Evadne. I don't want to sit down. I want to know why my husband is treating me like I'm on trial. Because you are, Eric said quietly. I whirled on him. Excuse me? Sit down, Nathan repeated, and something in his tone made me comply despite myself. He slid a manila folder across the table to me. Open it. With trembling hands, I opened the folder. The first page was a printout of text messages, my text messages with Liam. Not just the recent ones, but months of conversations. Flirtatious exchanges, plans to meet, inside jokes that were clearly more than professional. How did you get these? I whispered. Does it matter? Nathan asked. Are they real? I flipped through more pages, bank statements with charges highlighted in yellow, restaurant bills, coffee shops, even a hotel bar from 2 weeks ago when I'd told Nathan I was at a work conference. You've been spying on me, I said, trying to summon outrage. This is stalking behavior, Nathan. It's abusive. Is it abusive to want to know where my wife is spending our money? Is it abusive to wonder why she's lying about working late? I haven't been lying. Page 4, Eric interrupted. I flipped to page 4 and felt my stomach drop. It was a copy of my work timesheet for the past month, alongside the bank charges. Every day I'd claimed to be working late, there was a corresponding charge at a restaurant or bar. The evidence was damning and undeniable. How did you get my timesheets? I demanded. Your supervisor is concerned about you, Nathan said calmly. Apparently, you've been distracted at work, making mistakes, leaving early. She was happy to cooperate when I explained the situation. You went to my boss? Nathan, that's career sabotage. Is it? Or is it fact-checking? I flipped through more pages, my panic growing with each one. Phone logs showing late-night calls to Liam's number. Security footage timestamps from my office building, showing me with a man who was clearly not a coworker. Even social media screenshots, posts I'd made about feeling unappreciated and misunderstood. This is a violation of privacy, I said desperately. You can't just investigate your own wife like she's a criminal. Actually, Eric said, he can, especially when it comes to joint assets and marital property. Marital property? I looked between the two brothers. What are you talking about? Nathan leaned back in his chair. Tell me about Liam Forster. My heart hammered against my ribs. He's a vendor. We work together sometimes. Work together, Nathan repeated. Is that what you call the hotel bar visits? The romantic dinners? The text messages calling him baby? It's not what you think. What I think, Nathan interrupted, is that my wife has been having an affair for at least 6 months.
What's that? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Phone logs for the past 6 months. Every call, every text, every data usage. Would you like me to read some of your conversations with Liam out loud? No, I said quickly. Nathan, please. Maya's upstairs. She doesn't need to hear this. Maya's already hearing it, he said sadly. She's been asking me why Mommy doesn't eat dinner with us anymore, why you're always on your phone, why you seem angry all the time. The guilt hit me like a physical blow. I'm not angry all the time. You're angry at me all the time, Nathan corrected, because I represent everything that's standing between you and your new life. That's not true. Isn't it? He opened the second folder. Page 1, text message to Liam dated 3 weeks ago. Quote, I wish I could just disappear with you and leave all this behind. Page 2, another message. Nathan would never understand. He's too cold and controlling. Each quote felt like a slap. Seeing my private thoughts laid out like evidence made them sound so much worse than they'd felt when I'd typed them. You're taking those out of context, I protested weakly. What context makes it okay to tell another man you want to disappear with him? Eric asked. I didn't have an answer for that. Nathan sat back down across from me. Evadne, I'm going to ask you one more time. Is there anything you want to tell me? Any truth you want to share before this goes any further? I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something I hadn't expected. Pain. Deep, genuine pain, mixed with disappointment and what might have been love. For a moment, I considered telling him everything. The whole truth about how lonely I'd been, how invisible I'd felt, how Liam had made me remember what it felt like to be desired. I considered apologizing, begging for forgiveness, promising to end it with Liam and work on our marriage. But then I thought about how cold Nathan could be, how he'd humiliated me at brunch, how he'd invaded my privacy and turned my own family against me. I thought about Liam's smile, the way he made me laugh, the way he saw me as more than just a wife and mother. It's complicated, I said again. And I'm not going to block Liam from my phone just because you're feeling insecure. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. You're not going to block him? Nathan repeated slowly. No, I'm not. Liam is my friend, and I won't let your paranoia destroy that friendship. Eric and Nathan exchanged a look that made my blood run cold. Okay, Nathan said quietly. I think that tells me everything I need to know. What's that supposed to mean? But Nathan was already closing the folders, already standing up from the table. It means, he said, that I have some phone calls to make.
As I watched him walk out of the kitchen, I had the strangest feeling that I'd just made a terrible mistake. But I couldn't take it back now. I'd drawn my line in the sand. I just hoped I could live with the consequences. The next few days passed in a blur of whispered conversations and sideways glances. Nathan had moved into the guest room, temporarily, though we both knew there was nothing temporary about it. Maya kept asking why Daddy was sleeping in the spare bedroom, and I kept making excuses that sounded weaker each time I said them. Thursday morning at Maya's school pickup, I noticed the other mothers weren't making eye contact.
Mommy and Daddy are just going through a rough patch. All married people do sometimes. Tommy said his parents went through a rough patch too. Then his daddy moved out. I didn't know what to say to that, so I turned up the radio and pretended not to see Maya wipe her eyes. At home, I found Nathan in his home office, surrounded by more papers and folders. He looked up when I knocked on the doorframe. Maya's school counselor wants to meet with us, I said. She's concerned about behavioral changes. Nathan's jaw tightened. What kind of behavioral changes? Difficulty concentrating, some crying at school. I paused. She asked me today if we're getting divorced. Something flickered across Nathan's face. Pain, maybe, or guilt. What did you tell her? That we're going through a rough patch. Are we? He asked quietly. Going through a rough patch? Or are we past that point? I didn't answer because I didn't know how to answer. Instead, I changed the subject. The other mothers at school are acting weird, like they know something. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. I may have mentioned our situation to a few people. What people? Eric's wife, my mother, a couple of friends from work. Nathan! I felt panic rising in my chest. You told people about Liam? I told people that we're having marital problems and I'm considering my options. Your options? The words came out sharper than I intended. What options? He looked at me with those calm, analytical eyes that I was starting to hate. Legal options, Evadne. The room seemed to spin slightly. Legal options? You mean divorce? I mean protecting myself and Maya. From what? From me? I laughed, but it sounded hysterical even to my own ears. I'm not a threat to anyone, Nathan. I'm trying to save our marriage. By refusing to end your affair? It's not an affair. The words exploded out of me. It's a friendship that you're turning into something sordid because you can't stand that I have someone in my life who actually values me. A friendship? Nathan repeated. Is that what we're calling it now? Nathan pulled evidence from a filing cabinet. My texts with Liam, the hotel receipt, everything. You chose this affair, he said, voice finally raised. Stop calling it complicated. It's selfish. I'd never actually talked to Nathan about feeling invisible. I just found a Liam instead. Text him now. End it, or I leave, Nathan demanded. My phone buzzed. Liam asking if I was okay. I need time, I whispered. You have until tomorrow. Maya comes first. After Nathan left, I stared at Liam's message, then typed, things are complicated, but I'm okay. Miss you. I hit send. Outside, Nathan's car pulled away. Friday morning arrived gray and cold, matching my mood perfectly. I'd barely slept, tossing and turning in our empty king-size bed while Nathan stayed in the guest room. Every creak of the house, every sound from the street made me wonder if this was it, if he was packing up and leaving for good. But when I stumbled downstairs at 7 a.m., Nathan was in the kitchen making coffee, like it was any other morning. He was dressed in his best suit, navy blue with a crisp white shirt and the tie I'd bought him for his birthday 2 years ago. Going somewhere special? I asked, trying to keep my voice light. I have a meeting at 9, he said without looking at me. What kind of meeting? The kind that determines what happens next. A chill ran down my spine. That it was complicated? That Nathan had driven me to it? That I deserved to be happy? All of those excuses sounded hollow now, sitting in our kitchen while my husband prepared to divorce me. I want to see Maya, I said finally. Maya's coming with me. What? Nathan, you can't take her away from me. I'm not taking her away from you. I'm protecting her from this chaos while we figure out what comes next. She's my daughter too. Then you should have thought about that before you chose Liam over your family. The words hit me like physical blows. I didn't choose anyone over my family. I'm trying to hold our family together. By continuing an affair, by lying to me every single day, by gaslighting me and making me feel crazy for asking reasonable questions. Nathan shook his head. That's not holding our family together, Evadne. That's destroying it. Footsteps on the stairs interrupted our argument. Maya appeared in the doorway, already dressed for school, her backpack slung over her small shoulders. "Are you and Mommy fighting again?" she asked Nathan quietly. "No, sweetheart," Nathan said, his voice immediately gentling. "Mommy and I are just having a discussion." "It sounds like fighting," Maya said, and I could hear tears threatening in her voice. I knelt down to her level. "Baby, everything's going to be okay. Mommy and Daddy just need to work some things out." "Are you getting divorced like Tommy's parents?" The question hung in the air like a sword. I looked at Nathan, pleading with my eyes for him to say no, to reassure our daughter that we'd figure this out. Instead, he knelt down next to me. "Maya, sometimes grown-ups have problems that are too big to fix.